Sometimes I look at
Sorry, just before I forget, hit the record.
it's okay.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sometimes I look at Facebook and I'm like, who's that again?
Yeah, yeah. A few people, but I mean, Facebook, it's kind of hard to tell what people are really up to using that anyway, isn't it?
Very true.
And now, I mean,
It's
what I
a
use it for,
highlight reel.
I mean, I basically use it now to just like message people. Like if I want to contact you, I'll use Facebook. But otherwise,
Yeah.
geez, what's the last post I even put on Facebook?
Yeah, I had to wean myself away from social media because I'm like, it's such a time suck.
Yeah,
You
like
just find yourself scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then you think that you're like keeping up with folks, but you don't really know what's going on with them from the highlight reel.
all right, here I am checking myself. I'm doxing myself, am I? I don't know. Okay, someone else made a post about me. Someone else made a post about me. I made a Christmas post that was stupid, but said nothing. Uh, Something about podcast. Yeah, I don't post anything to Facebook anymore, except like announcements of. Okay, July 11th. That's the last time I put up like a picture.
July 11th.
Yeah, because they still had
That's
like the
good.
Christmas lights up at the train station, which I guess is just like a permanent, like, hey, look at these lights now. But yeah, I was like July. I'm like, they're still there. I mean, they're still there now. So I guess it's just a permanent display. But that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, no, you have to go to my dad's Facebook to see photos from they visited in October, and but
Oh, really?
I'm to a point I didn't even take photos for the most part. And the ones I took were probably stupid, like of a ramen vending machine or something. Well, yeah, they're taking all the photos. Why do I need to bother?
Oh my goodness. That's funny. Yeah, I'm sure the grandparents take lots of pictures.
Yeah, it's like I get maybe it's from doing all the podcasting. I barely take photos anymore because I was quite photography oriented for quite a long time, and
Hmm.
kind of just yeah, I do this now. So
Cool.
like musically, I like play instruments so much. But I haven't been recording much recently. Like I said last week, I was like, we had to reschedule, and I was like, that's fine because I scheduled myself for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday morning. So I was like,
Oh
okay,
my gosh.
not having this one that we're doing, the Twilight Zone, is like about to be like very far ahead, which is nice. Uh,
That's awesome.
the movie one is okay. I do this Disney one, but that's just every Friday now, and it doesn't matter when they come out because they were never on a schedule. Um,
Hmm.
and then I do one with my buddy in Atlanta about a 70s sci-fi show, Space 1999. That one we're just like right on the edge. We're always recording next week's episode now, so I'll probably put that one
Okay.
on hiatus for a few weeks just to keep myself from going nuts. But yeah, that's you getting this. See, I didn't get the scrolling trap so much, but I'm like, oh, I get up in the morning and talk to somebody on the
That's
Zoom, which
so cool though.
I guess that's better. Yeah.
That's definitely better than mindless scrolling.
Yeah. I mean, I've done that too, of course, but
Haven't we all?
never so much on Twitter though. I never fell down a Twitter hole, so that's good.
Me either. I never really got that much into Twitter or Snapchat. Yeah, I don't have time. I can't do all these different platforms. It's too many now.
I think I briefly started a Mastodon, but never figured out what it meant. Because when Elon Musk bought Twitter, like everyone was, oh, we got to find something else, and Mastodon was
Yeah.
one of the hopefuls, but it didn't really take in the end. So
I wonder what happened to what was the one that Trump came out with? Didn't he come out with his own social media platform?
it's probably called Truth or Freedom or something like that. Truth, maybe. I don't know. I
It
can't
was,
remember.
I forgot, it had an interesting name. I don't remember the name of it. I can't remember at all.
Yeah, especially living in Japan, though, it's like, no, that's not appealing. I mean, it wouldn't have been appealing in America either, but from here, definitely not. Because
Parlor, was it Parlor? Par
that
something with the,
one, that's not Trump's, but that's one that ended up going kind of right of wing. Like
yeah, I
I
think he
don't
like
think it was
endorsed it or
started.
something.
Yeah, I don't think it was started to be that, but it just kind of ended up going that way,
Yeah.
or maybe it was started to be that. I don't know. So
Who knows?
I'm
Who
not a social
knows?
media guru yet. So, um, question: just my voice coming in? Is the sound
Yeah,
quality fine?
you
Nope.
sound great.
Okay, I just keep having these crazy crackle problems, which are driving me insane because I never hear them when I'm recording. I just hear them later. So
No, you sound fine.
this mic's quite nice. It's just yes, there's something in the connection that keeps getting. It might be the fact this computer's just too old. It might be as simple as that. But yeah,
Could be.
this thing's like almost 15 years old.
That's good.
Well, it's got all the stuff on it working the way I want it to. It's got music programs. Well, they're slowly starting to not work the way I want it to as this thing gets old and outdated. But especially Zoom, because Zoom isn't built for this.
Yeah.
So it
That's
keeps
good that you have a computer that's that old though. It still works. Like I don't think I've had one that lasted that long.
with a laptop that I never move. Like this laptop
Uh,
has I have the last time I moved it from the spot was probably like 2016.
oh wow.
So that
Okay.
adds life when you don't move the laptop around, I think. So
Makes sense.
because I got iPads, I'll toss them everywhere, and they you get 3 years out of an iPad maybe. So
Yeah.
but even then, I got two iPads now because I got the old one, which I was going to give my daughter, but the new
Mhm.
one, like all the music software is like broken now, so you can't make music on
Oh,
it. So I'm like, I still need the old one for music.
how old is your daughter?
14.
Oh my gosh. I did not realize. Okay, that means you really haven't posted in a long time because I thought you still had a little girl. I remember seeing pictures of you with the little girl. I was about to say, oh, it's your little girl.
Yeah,
14.
yeah. So you'd have,
Well,
yeah.
how
So
are the
she's
teen years
calling.
going?
Fine. She goes to basically like the kind, like the basically it's not a magnet school, but along the Japanese version.
Okay.
They'll have it's a like public school, but it's you have to like pass a test to get in, blah blah blah. Um,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
so it kind of runs like a private school, but it is a public school,
Okay, cool.
and
Sort of
it's
like a charter school, maybe like what we'd call a charter school here, like an independent charter school.
maybe. I never. I
Yeah.
know. I know. Chambly at one point went charter school, and I think it's gone back. If I remember that too, but I never quite understood what that meant. So
I think the charters just give you more like independence. Like you can do a different type of curriculum. You can have more flexibility with how you teach and with rules and requirements. Like they require parental engagement, most of them like a certain number of hours per month. So that's how a lot of kids end up not being able to go because if your parents can't volunteer or be involved a certain number of hours per month, they have a lot more strict requirements around behavior. A lot of them have uniforms and then, like I said, there's like flexibility with how they implement curriculum.
yeah, like every junior high around here has uniforms. So I can't think of a junior
Okay.
high that like the high schools don't necessarily, and the elementaries don't. But yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
think about the Japanese school kid thing, right? You just imagine a
Yeah.
uniform because you're thinking to junior high kids. And some
Yeah.
some high schools have it. Like I think my daughter, it's also like kind of like shambling that the junior high and the high schools like all on the same campus. So
Mm-hmm.
usually in Japan, you have to take an entrance test for junior high. It's always 3 years in Japan. There's no
Mm.
variation because it's a national
Okay.
system. And
Okay.
then you have to take another entrance test for high school. But
Wow.
but at her school, she doesn't have to because that one she just feeds it. It's like the junior high has two classes of 40 people, so only 80 kids in her grade, and
Okay.
uh and then when it goes to high school, it bumps up. So the high school has like 700 kids, where the junior high only has like 240 or whatever it is.
Okay.
So
Cool. I think Kittredge, we didn't call ourselves, we weren't called a charter school, but the Kittredge experience was similar to what you'd see at like charter schools with just a different type of innovative learning and, catering to the way that kids learn and hands-on opportunities to learn, things like that. Starting a foreign language so early, like to me, Kittredge was similar to what a lot of charter schools are now.
ironically, my foreign language skills are still garbage, as is my Japanese.
Really?
Yeah, it's like okay, I'll face life and try to overcome the fact that I suck at languages. That I still suck at languages.
You're not fluent in Japanese?
No, I should be, but yeah. Well, you
Really?
work you work in a setting that's completely English, right? So,
Yeah.
or I work in a setting that's completely English. I could read some Japanese. I can understand more
Okay.
than I can speak. Like if someone says it, maybe I know the word, but I couldn't just recall it.
Got you. Interesting.
I mean, I know like day to day stuff to say in a store, that sort of stuff. But yeah, as far as like
Hmm.
having a decent conversation, I've had a few things where like I'll talk to my sister in law where she's speaking Japanese and I'm speaking English and no one's translating.
Oh,
Like she
really?
she can understand what I'm saying, I can understand what she's saying, but we can't really produce in the other language. So that's kind of a
That's
weird
so
experience.
cool.
It's like a Star Wars experience talking to Chewbacca, right?
Right. When I was on vacation over the summer, I met a family. The guy was from, I forgot where in the US, and the woman was from Colombia. and she didn't speak English and he didn't speak Spanish, like at all. And I was like, this is interesting. And they were married. And they, I was like, they make it work.
Okay. You know, my wife speaks English pretty. I mean, you can tell she's not a native speaker, but her English is
Mhm.
fine. Um, you know, my daughter being 14, sometimes she doesn't want to produce the English, but she knows it.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's basically like she was more mature than me at age 5, but you know, like if there is a little bit of teenager ness, it's that sort of thing. Like yesterday, it's like let's make sweet. She's like, I want to study. I'm studying all day. It's like, really? Are you sure? But yeah, I don't remember any of us ever being like, I want to study all Saturday or
I
Sunday.
don't recall that either. But these new age kids are kind of different. Well, not, they're a lot different.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of
They're a
times
lot.
it's like, you know, with my students, like, what are you doing this week? I am studying math. I'm like, oh, how about for fun? No fun studying. I'm like, are they telling me that because I'm a teacher, or you know, they feel like they're supposed to say that? I don't know. And I'm like, that's a boring answer. I don't want that answer. I want something that
Right.
can spark some conversation. You know.
But that's if they're telling the truth, that's really commendable.
Yeah. I mean, study. I'm sure she's in her room. Well, actually, when I open the door, it looks like she's studying, but I would assume she's, you know, bopping over for a few video games or something on the phone at least.
Yeah.
Go insane if you didn't, but yeah,
I would
yeah.
think so. And that's a lot of pressure at a young age to just spend all that time studying and not having lots of fun.
Well, Japan's a good place to. No, I mean, she's. I'm not saying she's socially disadjusted, but Japan's a good place to find people who are not socially adjusted.
That's good. That's good. People are focused. That's good.
Yeah, but when you drive yourself nuts, there's the hikikomori where people just decide to stay in their room forever.
E.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't want that.
sometimes for gaming, sometimes just because they don't want to face people. So there, yeah, there's the weird side to some of that too. A lot of people don't even
That is
date
weird.
anymore. You know, you get in their 20s. They like it was like something like, 40% of males 20 to 40 have never even gone on a date or something. It's crazy.
Really? So I wonder what folks think about Americans with that difference in social lives. Like, because we're the exact opposite. We're on the other end of the spectrum over here.
Yeah, 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 really. So let me put my notes up. I guess we should get grooving on this then.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave like 5 seconds of silence so I can easily spot it, and then I will start this episode. Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we dive into all of the episodes of the Twilight Zone and beyond. As always, this is Matt here. Coming back for another round is Amisha Harding. Howdy.
Hi.
And yeah, we're talking about changing the guard today, which has to do with going to school. Which hey, you and I went to school together. That's not why this episode was chosen for you. By I chose this one for you, but that's not why. Just to let you know.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm curious to know why you chose this one for me.
it's the reason's actually kind of boring. Like this is the end of season 3. We've been doing season 3 for a year. It got extended because we did something different during the SGA strike. Um, but yeah, we've been doing it for a year. Lesson. But Sam, I'm already thinking about school. Uh, season 4 only has 18 episodes. My regulars have already claimed them, so I'm like, if I want to get someone in
Uh,
who hasn't been here for a while, this is the spot. So
Yay.
I was like, she hasn't been here since season 1. I should get her back for one. And season 4 is going to be a little dodgy, so might call you back for 5, but 4, I'm like
Call me
trying
back.
to. Yeah, yeah. It got crowded when I started planning it, so very quickly, which is good. But yeah,
That's really good.
but and also because when we did the last episode, you said you liked scaring yourself at night with Twilight Zone, so it seems that we should get a little farther down that path.
It was something that me and my cousins looked forward to when we were kids. Like we loved staying up and watching Twilight Zone at my grandma's house. Like it was just something to do, and we were like so spooked by it. Or some of the episodes. So it's like a childhood memory.
Yeah, this one's kind of slight spooky, I guess, just that has ghostly forms in it.
Yeah.
The one we did the dummy a few weeks ago, and that's the one where you're like, oh God, no. Or the dummy and the ventriloquist do swap places at the end.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Weird.
And just you're watching, ventriloquist dummies for 25 minutes too, which is just that's unsettling on its own. And
Yes, it is.
I guess no one in this is that unsettling. I mean, all the kids are just like whatever. They're just there. You can
Yeah.
put some war gore on them, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, I was like, if they had like war gore and you could tell the way that they left this world, like that would be kind of creepy. But they did it really nice and not so spooky this time.
Yeah, I'll have a few things to say about that, as I should, because that's what we're doing in this
Yes.
episode. Let me do a little bit of trivia about this one. The original air date was June 1st, 1962. The script is by Rod Serling. Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity was the motto of Serling's alma mater, Antioch College. By the time this episode aired, Serling had started teaching at Antioch and only showing up on the Twilight Zone set occasionally.
Okay.
Robert Ellis Miller directed for this episode only. He worked in both film and television with titles like The Buttercup Chain and Sweet November under his belt. Professor Ellis Fowler was played by Donald Pleasance. He is best known as Dr. Ernst Blofeld in You Only Live Twice and as Dr. Sam Loomis in Halloween. This was his U.S. debut at age 42. So
42.
the old professor is only 42 in this.
Gosh, how does that make me feel?
Well, look at I'm watching these on Blu-ray, and the amount of makeup on his face is noticeable when
Oh
you
my
watch it in
gosh.
HD. So, well, you can get back
42.
to me about how his acting is then, because maybe
Yeah.
Baldwin is older. I don't know. Liam Sullivan was the headmaster. We've already seen him in the episode The Silence, and he guested all around early 60s television. Was he on Perry Mason? You bet he was. Later, he was a Timothy Leary surrogate character on Dragnet. Mrs. Landers was Philippa Bevins. This is among her few filmed appearances, but she was involved with the original Broadway run of My Fair Lady, with her voice heard on the original cast recording. Although I've never heard the original cast recording of My Fair Lady because I've never seen or listened to it. So
Nor have I.
I'm not the biggest musical guy. I don't know.
I actually like musicals.
Yeah, well, what's your favorite then?
Oh goodness. I used to watch The Sound of Music with my mom every single year. Like when it came on television and knew all the songs. So I think that's one of my favorite just because I loved it from childhood. And then I went to see The Lion King on Broadway some years ago, like maybe 7 years ago, and that was amazing. That was such an amazing experience.
Oh yeah, just the production. Actually, I'm going to a musical next month, which is being in Japan, an oddball one, I guess. Are you familiar with an anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
That sounds familiar.
No, I'm just coming straight up. I know nothing about it.
Mhm.
Other dude in this podcasting network, Luke, his girlfriend's all into it, so he's been learning about JoJo. But yeah, my daughter loves it, so we're going to see this musical based on it in Tokyo
Okay.
next month. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. I'm not even gonna study what this thing is. I'm just gonna show up for the musical, have them
And
sing to me
enjoy.
in Japanese, doing whatever happens in this, and just see if I can, get my mind blown by, you know, kind
That's
of
gonna
like if
be cool.
yeah, it's like if you got to go watch, say, like, the original Star Wars, knowing nothing about it. I mean, that'd be cool. Yeah,
That would be cool.
can't get away with that anymore.
No, you
I'm
can't.
throwing up on the board here the prologue. If you could give that any reading you'd like.
Professor Ellis Fowler, a gentle, bookish guide to the young who is about to discover that life still has certain surprises and that the campus of the Rock Spring School for Boys lies on a direct path to another institution, commonly referred to as the Twilight Zone.
All right. Okay. So I don't know. I guess I think we would do a little differently today. Just ask for your first impressions on what you saw.
Oh, goodness. I mean, in this day and age, seeing this compared to like being a kid, like I wasn't thinking about some of the topics that I'm thinking about now, but I was like, ageism. Like, I was like, why are they discriminating against this man because of his age? And I just like, I thought about the ways that so many people are so connected to their work that once they retire or are forced to retire, it's like they kind of just give up on life because their whole life was built around work. And it made me think about that and think about how many people are dealing with that all the time. Like sometimes you hear that people retired and, a year later they're dead. And it's like, why? But so many people, their identity is wrapped up in work. And then I love the message about like what does it mean to make a meaningful contribution? Like, do you have to be a war general or do you have to be the next Oprah? Or could you have taught kids things like loyalty and courage? And that's what we saw. And I thought that was really beautiful for people to understand like what is a meaningful contribution to the world and to a life, and to really hear them say those words like, you taught me loyalty, you taught me courage, you taught me patriotism. I think that was a really positive and really powerful.
The thing that kind of unsettled me about that, though, and this is going to have to do with some other Rod Serling things we've watched recently, so I'll have to explain
Yeah.
that to you a little bit. But Serling's known for in the early 60s being pretty progressive. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
today there's some hot and cold, but he was in World War II. He's a paratrooper, and I feel like that kind of skewed his vision a little bit because, like you
Mm.
said, why aren't they covered in war gore and stuff? And I'm like, all these guys learned about loyalty and courage and then died in battle.
They all died. Like that's what I was thinking too. Like all of them, all your students are dead. Like,
Right. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of living ones too, but
yes, but that was a
so
lot.
watching again last night, I was happy that there's at least the one guy who accidentally, radioactively killed himself trying to
Trying to figure out a cure for
discover.
cancer.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's a little different, but that, and then one person, I don't think they were in battle, they were in the military, but saved somebody and died in the process. But
Yes.
it's still like all these people had to go to World War One and two, judging by the class dates they're saying, and
Yeah.
it's like what he taught them led them to their deaths, or they died more happy. I don't know. That was kind of for me, like yeah, on the surface, oh yeah, he taught them about loyalty and courage. That's great. I'm like, yeah, but what
Yeah.
happened wasn't so great.
No, it really wasn't. But maybe he was able to help them understand like these values so they saw purpose in their death, maybe.
Right. I mean, it just seems like there's probably 4 times as many living students who could give him more positive stories. Maybe not as ghosts. That's the thing here. They have to be ghosts in this, so they
Yeah, because
have to be
that
dead.
wouldn't be Twilight Zone if there weren't ghosts.
Well, we found some that weren't so supernaturally,
Yeah.
but yeah, they got to add that supernatural element, or it doesn't make sense if his students just start. If a bunch of his students show up to give him a farewell party and tell him, that's more realistic, but less
Yeah.
interesting to watch. Um, the other
True.
one, and the reason that it really stuck to me watching this is for Christmas we watched his 1964 movie Carol for Another Christmas, which
Hmm.
is kind of like like a Christmas Carol vibe thing with no Christmas trees or imagery in it, which was interesting. But
Hmm.
it follows the Dickens story, very roughly with
Yeah.
past, present, future, but it's just no Christmas imagery because this was meant as a special to teach people to love the UN, which,
Hmm.
and one thing that's fine, but the thing that sat weird with us is, again, the war thing, where I think today we're like, oh, we should, wouldn't it be nice if we could like stop wars before they happen, or
Yeah.
prevent wars from happening? I think that's how people generally think now. Where this
Yeah.
1964 thing was like, well, we're gonna have war, so let's at least do it orderly under the UN.
True.
So yeah,
True.
and that's why I think watching this one, I just watched that. Now I'm seeing this. I'm like, here's a part of Rod that maybe doesn't fit so well into modern society. That
Mm.
the
That makes
all
sense. We're
quiet on the
definitely anti-war
yeah.
these
So,
days.
and I just thought this was an interesting Twilight Zone, is being a very good episode, very well acted.
Yeah.
The production's good. It's shot well. Blah blah blah. I'm like, the message of this one actually sits weird with me.
Yeah. It does. Like it is interesting that they didn't have students that are here and now, like talking about the contributions that he's made. And I don't know, I found it interesting that they really made sure to hone in on the fact like that he like forgot to check his mail, but he remembered all of his students. Like he remembered their faces, he remembered something about them. Um, which just makes it makes the whole ageism thing just like more blatant and in your face because clearly he remembers a lot and he loves his job and he loves his students and they love him and they find value in him, but nobody in the present day is like talking about that. What they call him, Weird Beard? What was his
Weird beard.
name?
Yeah,
Weird
weird
Beard.
beard. That's right. It
Like,
was a little weird. I mean, I guess he kind of beat Nicky Beard for the time.
yeah, yeah, Weird Beard. Not. I mean, I guess I've been called worse, but but it's just interesting that like the value wasn't seen in the present. But then they came to sing and carol for him at the end, which was
Right.
nice.
Oh, more carols. Yeah. Oh, yeah. A little more Christmas, I guess.
Yeah,
A lot
that
of
was
Christmas
nice. And I
episodes.
guess that was the present day appreciation of him, the students coming out to carol for him and being there at his house and at his home for the holidays. And he was so full of energy because of that.
My other thought is much snarkier. Is that this is a prep school with very affluent students, and I was thinking, if their daddies are senators, a lot of these kids aren't going to one in the first place.
Oh, good thought.
Like we're not getting a good cross section here. We're definitely getting, like prep school vibes, Dead Poet Society vibes here.
Definitely. Definitely. And would they really be going to war? Hmm.
Yeah, the people that you tend to find a loophole for.
Yeah, very true. Flat feet, something. Like,
So someone from a very rural school or from a like a lower school, they're just these guys get to die with a gleam in their eye of loyalty, whereas some of these other people are just grist for the mill.
true. Very
So
true.
I don't know
Very
why this one has me thinking so pessimistically.
But this is what it's supposed to do. Like, I think when we look at these shows from a different lens and a different time, like that's what we're supposed to do is think about it. Like, it was interesting to me that, I mean, when I was a kid watching Twilight Zone, I was like, 8, 9, whatever age I was, I definitely wasn't thinking about topics like, you know, wealthy folks versus lower class folks or ageism. Like, I wasn't thinking about any of that.
Yeah, just hear
So
some kids in
it's
school. I'm in school.
it
I
is.
can relate with
Here's
that.
some kids in school, and these kids are ghosts. So now I'm gonna go to bed scared, and that's what I was thinking about. But yeah, I think I love the different layers of this episode and the different ways that you can go with how you think about it and dissect it.
And when it started, I actually wondered, they make the doctor or the professor to be a sympathetic figure, but
Yeah,
at the beginning, his teaching, again, it might be because I've seen Dead Poet Society. I'm like, his teaching's pretty dry. I thought he was going to turn out to be the old curmudgeon, which
yeah,
maybe that's a cool twist that the show does. That maybe that's why he's acting that way at the beginning. Because I'm like, he's not a very dynamic teacher at age 70, whatever.
no. But he has that, you can tell that he has some kindness to him or some lightness to him because he's like, okay, I'm gonna let you guys go early. It's the beginning of the break. It's, we're getting ready to break for Christmas. And I think that a lot of old, miserable, mean teachers wouldn't have done that.
No, although
So
he
it's
did
like
call them
showing his
dunderheads just before that, but
exactly. Like, what's a dunderhead? I love the word dunderhead.
and what was the other one here that I think it's one of those words that's been used like twice in recent episodes.
Uh-huh.
One recent one we came across was discombobulated, which apparently is a real word. Perspicacious. I was like, no one uses that casually. I don't think I knew that word.
Never.
Yeah,
No, that's not
I had the
even
subtitles on. I wouldn't even call it if I didn't have the subtitles on.
yeah. Yeah, we didn't even learn that for hot words for the SAT in language arts class. We did not learn that one.
Could I guess that one? If I got four choices, I mean, come on, that's why you get a good score on the SAT, you're real good at guessing. I mean, that's what they basically teach you, isn't it?
Pretty
Get good at
much.
guessing and you'll get a good score. So
Mr. Austin taught us Latin roots, which was how we learned a lot of words. Those Latin roots got me through.
oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. That
Yes.
was an older teacher that you and I both had, taught us that.
Yeah.
In Japan, no one knows about the Latin and Greek roots. So especially with adult students, I don't have many of now, but if I have adult students, I might like, dude, study that and you'll know half the words you see, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. Like I continue to be grateful for those Mr. Austin classes because of that.
And just to paint this for a listener, this was a bizarre classroom with lamps and couches. So
Yes.
which is very
Yeah.
cool. I hate fluorescent lights, so I was down with the lighting scheme.
Same. Yeah, Mr. Austin was a very forward thinking teacher who, he taught us in ways that most kids weren't learning back then. And he taught us things that we need to know. Like I learned the 5 paragraph essay from Mr. Austin. I would not have mastered that were it not for Mr. Austin.
There's something else that I am teaching because I mean they do the simpler version. It's for an ESL test, but it's still the
Yeah.
same thing, you know. And you know, you can't say the same thing twice. If you write two sentences with different words that mean the same thing, it's not good enough.
No.
So okay,
So
there is a better than I didn't end up going into, you know, Afghanistan and getting my head blown off while thinking about how loyal I was. I'm teaching Japanese people Latin roots and 5 paragraph essays. That seems, I don't know, better. It's less Twilight Zone
yeah.
though, isn't it?
As a teacher, like, do you feel that your past students have a deeper appreciation for you than your current students, like what we saw with Professor Fowler?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. Um, again, it's also Japan where like people actually have more like respect for teachers, I guess. You
Mm,
know, like I mean, you know, sensei, right?
yeah.
Sense, you know, so usually I'd be like Harding-san, but if you're a teacher or a doctor or a, you know, a lawyer, so they're putting the teachers in with the not necessarily paying them like the doctors and lawyers, but in the respect camp, it's all sensei if they're a doctor or a teacher or like a, you know, lawyer or something. So
Really?
there's a higher respect level, I think, for teachers.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, there's teachers that work at high schools and elementary schools that just work way too much. They're just always there. So they're
Mm.
putting in like 60-hour weeks, and that's not
Oh
cool.
my gosh. No,
It's not. I mean, they are putting in like way too much work. So yeah, sure, I guess they deserve that title, but
they do. That's insane.
But
Hmm.
that said, of course, I have, you know, recently I've noticed a bunch of kids have learned the F word, which I'm guessing is from a Jap. I don't know where, but I'm thinking there must be a recent Japanese comedy act because when there's a popular comedy act, like you'll
Hmm.
have kids doing it for like months, and I'm like, and on Japanese TV, you could drop an F bomb, I think, and people just do it.
Really?
Well, it's not. It doesn't have the cultural stock. They don't know the language, right? So
Ah, that makes sense.
so if I get annoyed with a kid for saying it, sometimes they really don't understand why I'm annoyed at them because they don't understand.
Mm.
Uh, Japanese doesn't have particularly dirty words. I mean, there's ones you wouldn't want to say in, you know, just any company, but there's not anything that's just like, you know, do not say this unless you're behind certain boundaries.
Wow. Interesting. Huh.
But I mean, that's why I told we were playing some game and the cute 14-year-old junior high girl, not my daughter, student was yeah was the F bomb at her at the other classmate and like don't just do it outside the room, don't do it now.
Oh my gosh.
And she wasn't doing it maliciously, right? It was
Uh-huh.
just she was trying to be funny.
Really?
Yeah, so I
Wow.
mean, yeah, from
Well,
our perspective, doing that in junior high, just trying to be funny, like, is doesn't make sense. But
no. But now it's so common, the way that kids curse, like it's so common around adults. It's so very, very common. So I wouldn't be surprised, like with people just dropping F bombs, like for fun.
yeah, like again, Japanese, there's no particularly dirty words, but if I do hear kids, you know, like saying something like that, I might say, "Oh, could you tell me that in English?" To which point they kind of like shrink back a little bit because they're like, oh
Um,
crap, he actually knows what I'm saying.
Tell them to not say the F word. Tell them to say dunderhead instead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Teach him some Thunderhead. That's good. So
Let's go with dunderhead.
Thunderhead. But no, yeah, I was gonna bring up Mr. Austin if you hadn't done it first, because I feel like that maybe that's our closest analogy to this as a guy that had probably been asked to retire a few times previously,
Mm.
or not. Oh God, I'm on a permanent contract now, but my first 10 years in Japan was a yearly contract, and
Oh,
talk about nasty. Yeah, because this guy was like, I'm always on a yearly contract, so I didn't open the mail because I just get one. It's like, well, until you don't. So
right. And he said he hadn't checked his mail in like 2 weeks. That was so sad. That was
no,
so very sad.
he hadn't ordered anything from Amazon. Why would he check his mail?
True.
Nothing you want's coming. Why bother?
Right. Right. And I was wondering, like, do you, I guess he lived in campus housing, maybe?
That Yeah, because he walks outside and he's so close to go to his
Yeah,
classroom. So
yeah. Because I was like, so campus housing comes with a maid too, probably, I would assume. Like all of that was included, maybe as a part of his work. I wonder.
that goes
It's
back
like,
to
is
my
he,
my plot hole that none of these kids would have actually gone to war because the schools
yeah,
don't
because I'm
close.
like, what teacher can afford to have a maid that lives in and like cooks his dinner and stuff like that? The
Yeah, I
house
mean, I'm
with
sure if
house.
you're at Cambridge, they work that out for you. But yeah, just
Exactly.
but
So I don't know, losing the job could have been a lot more than just that. It would also mean his housing, it would also mean his help, et cetera, et cetera. So I
well,
guess it
they
was,
they did say he was going to be on half salary, which
yeah,
isn't bad if especially I guess yeah, it's the '60s. Social Security's working now, so you
yeah,
get Social Security, you get your half salary. Like the headmaster, that's the thing. The headmaster is not a villain in this at all. He's just like
no,
they've made this decision, man. Like in Japan again, with a lot of foreign workers work on yearly contracts, and when you don't get that yearly contract, it's like bye bye. If you're lucky, they'll give you a little bonus on the way out the door.
yeah, yeah. Do you think that the bells chiming, was that the Twilight Zone or did it actually happen? Like, what do you think about the bells chiming that made him, put the gun down and go inside to his classroom?
Well, actually, I'm going to use that to just start doing the questions I ask in every episode because you're getting right at it. The first
Okay,
question being, and you can include the bells with this if you like. Who in this episode went in or through the Twilight Zone? Um, so you're
definitely
saying the
Professor
bells
Ball.
are from the zone?
Like the bells, because he was saying there's no assembly, there's nothing happening. Why are those bells chiming? And it was, I think the bells chiming was his invitation, I guess, to the Twilight Zone because there was no reason for the bells to be chiming, I guess,
Or are they only in his head? Is I guess what we should be wondering. Or does
which is the
you know
Twilight Zone.
is he dreaming out in the snow? Is he actually going into his classroom?
Could have been dreaming at home.
I guess what we're saying is we're firmly sending Professor Ellis Fowler into the Twilight Zone this episode, and
Yeah,
you can work out the semantics of how it's actually working out physically and things,
yeah,
but
true.
but yeah, I do like that the bells are kind of an invocation. When the Twilight Zone segment starts, that they
Yeah,
chime, and when it finishes, they chime again, and the boys are all
yeah.
gone. So so yeah, I would for sure say that is. Is there anyone else you want to include? I mean, if you're dead, does that make you go? Are all these boys that died in war and doing cancer research in the Twilight Zone, or are they in the Great Beyond, or is that the same thing?
I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Like I feel like the Twilight Zone is that place of unknown, that unknown place, and the beyond is unknown, heaven is unknown, hell is unknown. Because if you're there, then typically you don't come back, except for the people that do these books that, I've been to hell and let me tell you all about it. But most people don't give a report back. So we don't know. So Twilight Zone, the beyond, I think it's all the same thing.
Yeah, a few months ago we did a Little Girl Lost, and what kind of what stood made that episode stand out. It's the only episode where they, drew some lines on the wall and had a door directly into the Twilight Zone, went in, and then came
Mm,
back out. And we're like, that's a weird literal one. Where I do like this one having the invocation. Again, I do hear temple bells and things like that in Japan sometimes. Oh, well, churches have chimes, so
yeah.
it is a general signal that, and, and in a school, of course, it's for the assembly or for the next class, but in other contexts, it is like, here is a sound to let you know that we are leaving the normal world. So
Yeah. That definitely was the way that I knew, like, okay, yes, they are going into the Twilight Zone. It has to be because he was about to kill himself.
right.
So yeah, like for him to stop that, that was some other worldly pull to another place to keep him from making that taking that action.
1962, where we just keep a revolver on our desk as a matter of course.
I was like, why does he have a revolver in his desk?
This is like the fourth revolver on our desk we've seen. Of course, the last time we saw it was, I think, Long Live Walter Jameson, which, to be fair, was a 1,000-year-old guy who might need it at some point.
Yeah.
This is just a relatively normal professor. At least he didn't keep it in his school desk.
True. That would be kind of odd.
It's in the little 1962 version of discipline. You wave a gun at your students.
And
They'd
nothing
be
would happen.
No, they'd be like, "Great job, professor. Those kids are really under control."
Exactly. It wouldn't even make the news. Nobody would care. It's just like, hey, that's what you got to do. Keep the kids in line.
I
Keep the
mean, I
dunderheads in line.
I'm still living in a world where I don't, we don't have metal detectors on schools or anything.
Mm.
Things do. What is it, the Japanese things in the news? Usually, like, um, weird stabbings and stuff. People just go crazy and stab somebody.
Mm.
But that
Okay.
happens. I think that happens in the States. Just doesn't make the news.
No, because there's so much worse things that happen in the States that make the news.
It's not the first time we've done this in an episode, but let's see what the old crime blotter has today for Japan today.
Mm.
Sometimes this is really like, oh well, and sometimes it's quite amusing. Man arrested for attempting to set fire to his apartment in Hokkaido. Okay, that's mildly funny. He tried to set
Okay. As
fire to
long
his
as there
own
were were there other people in the apartment, that could be bad.
set fire to apartment. It does say apartment where he lives, so that it's an apartment. Other people could be in there. More murder. Execs of fruit sales company arrested for fraudulently falsifying Apple export documents. That's in the headlines.
Really?
Man arrested for breaking into Sapporo school says he thought it was his home. That
Okay.
could have been this guy. He could have been
They're
caught by
so
the security
innocent.
at his school and been like, "Oh, I thought this was my house. No, your house is across
Oh,
the field because you live on campus."
he's just overworked. That's all that is.
And I am skipping over a few like not as fun headlines here too, by the way.
Mm.
But I'm trying to keep it
Mm.
to the fun ones because yeah, crime is crime, so it can get ugly quickly.
I'm looking at our headlines. I just typed in crimes in the US today, and I'm seeing plastic surgery helped murder suspect Caitlin Armstrong stay on the run.
That's a
Let's
good TV
see.
show episode.
Alabama's nitrogen gas execution expired. Let's see. Trial against Michigan school shooter's mom. These are awful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's this. We got school shootings where we do have random stabbings. People do go nuts. We were talking about how the school system here does have a certain amount of pressure with all those entrance exams and stuff. So,
Yeah, that's a
but
lot.
yeah, it's just a different flavor. Then this is a completely different flavor. Again, I'm all I can compare this to is Dead Poets Society because
Yeah,
I
definitely.
didn't go to the school. So, although weirdly, my dad did go to that school, which
Really?
the one that they filmed Dead Poet Society at, I believe he went to that one. So
Really?
yeah, his dad
Wow.
was a doctor, so yeah, they sent him to the prep school.
Okay. Interesting.
So I guess I have a little closer orbit to that. Mercersburg, that's what it's called. Okay, but
Mm,
yeah, I have a little closer than that than I think. But I didn't have those experiences, so I don't understand them at all.
yeah.
Other than the fact I watched that movie, which is probably not correct either. And I don't know. I don't know if you popped into a school in 1962, how different it would be.
Huh. I think it'd be a lot like what, like that boys' school, prep school. I think it'd be a lot like what we saw in that episode for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, because they're a little. The kids are a little snarky, I guess. So that if they were just listening, that would be unrealistic. Um,
True.
so does this professor deserve his trip through the Twilight Zone?
Definitely. I think that um had it not been for that trip to the Twilight Zone, he was ready to just kind of give up. He didn't see his value. He didn't see his worth outside of working day to day. He didn't see being a teacher as anything that was monumental and significant. Um, and he was able to see through the ghost of his students that he had played a major role, a very significant role in his students' lives, and I guess you could say in the lives of heroes. He wasn't, and I think there was a part where he said something about something alluding to the fact that he was a part of doing some significant things. He may not have done them, but he contributed. So it was, if he hadn't had that trip to the Twilight Zone, he probably would just given up. And I think that he was a good person with a great heart who really cared about his students. And he deserved that opportunity to have another life beyond, being a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he needs a good hobby. So, I
Exactly.
mean, I'm thinking about me. Like, I said I have a permanent contract, but I think it does say age 60 is when it expires, which is 15 years in the future. It's not that far. But
Yeah.
what am I going to do? Well, I make a lot of music. I do a lot of podcasts, and it's not like I don't have things to do. You know,
Yeah.
I can
But
keep
it seems
myself
like
busy.
he didn't. Like that was his life. School and those boys were his life. And it didn't allude to the fact that he had kids or was married or anything. He had a housekeeper that, I guess looks like he spent time with, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cooked his
They
dinner and that's probably who he ate his meals with. And, that was his other company in his actual home. So it seemed like maybe hopefully this will give him the inclination, the motivation to have a hobby, do something else, which is a message that a lot of people need to have as they get older and think about retirement. Like it can get very lonely and you can start to feel like you don't have purpose anymore. So it's important that you have other outlets and other things to do.
when I did teach more adults at my old job, one of the higher level books I remember had an article that the students were supposed to read, and we talk about Hiroshi who just retired, and he was always like, "Oh, I'll be able to travel with my wife now," but they have some money, but they don't have that much money. I'll have to do it in Japan. Oh, and his wife has friends; she's always busy, so she
Mm.
doesn't have time for him, and he doesn't know what to do. And then there's a picture of him sitting alone on a bench in a park.
Oh no, so sad.
But that's kind of this episode, except he doesn't have a wife, he has a housekeeper.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be a very lonely existence.
So I
So,
think maybe he still has to use this opportunity to make some sense out of the rest of his life, because he's
yeah.
happy while those carolers are out there, but some post seasonal depression,
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he has a chance here, but I don't think it's like, oh, this guy's fine now. He's gonna need to actually,
No,
take some initiative, not to just like stagnate. Which hopefully, I mean,
exactly.
that it's a hopeful feeling to the end of the episode. So you assume he will, but we don't know
Yeah.
that.
It seems like he has the energy to do it now. He has the like just the energy and the desire to do something now. Before he just seemed like life is over. I give up. It's not worth living. I don't even want to eat my dinner. I don't want to do anything. And now he's, windows open, talking to the children, accepting the wonderful holiday carols. And it just seems like he got like this new take on life, this energy that he didn't have before because he knows now that his life had and has purpose.
So yeah, like I said, it was just a little bit of like the messaging in this one. I was like, am I completely cool with this? But it is interesting just how 60 years like alters what you're watching. I mean, that's a
Oh
while ago,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have my tripometer. 0 is not trippy at all. 5 is extremely trippy. Where would you like to place this episode on the tripometer? And that's not quality, that's trippiness.
This one wasn't really that trippy to me. I would say the low end, like maybe a 2 on the tripometer.
That's kind of where I was thinking 2 or 2.5, because
Yeah.
you mentioned the bells. That I felt that segment was had at least like a little bit of trippiness. People, the ghosts appearing in the desk and then disappearing again. Okay, I mean it's kind of standard stuff. It's nothing like you haven't seen it before in 1962, but
Yeah.
it makes a cool atmosphere, and I'm willing to call it the atmosphere. Give it a point or two for that, sure.
Yeah. I think so. And I think if they didn't have the bells and he had just walked into the classroom, then it may have been a little bit trippier because I feel like the bells announced to us that something was happening. So it's like we were prepared for whatever he was about to experience because the bells were our way to know this is something's about to happen.
Right, right. And again, just as a temple or church bell is like, okay, we're changing the setting of your reality for whatever we're doing here. This episode does that. So it's almost like some kind of ceremonies happening.
Yeah, agreed. A changing of the guard. That's the
Oh,
ceremony that's
oh yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah. Very, very, very it's right in my face, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That is the ceremony.
Burp. Okay. That works. That works. Yeah.
Dunderhead.
I am a dunderhead for that one. It's in the title of the episode. What do you talk about for a while? I told you I'm doing the Space 1999 episodes where we're always like the episode titles are like on the wrong episode and the other half are like interchangeable. So
Wow.
like we're like, how could it be the one where they all get de-evolved into like prehistoric cavemen? Why is that one not missing link? That's a different episode. That doesn't make sense.
I got to check this out.
All on YouTube. So yeah,
Okay.
I guess I'll segue that into my plug where I'll tell people where they can check that out. But do you have anything rolling that you want people to know about on the nets these days?
Not really. I've been recording some cast episodes for my own podcast, but I want to get a lot of them recorded before I launch it because I don't want the pressure of having to scramble and come up with things and guests every week. So, been working on that, which I'm excited about. And it's just kind of creating a space for folks to share like struggles and the ways and the reasons why they got through it, with the idea that like so many human experiences connect us, and it's those human experiences that we need to share more of, and that's the premise of the podcast. But I'm just recording now, and then we'll figure out when I'm going to launch once I get some more recordings under my belt.
We'll send a link and I can put it in the show notes, even if we're not
Okay.
calling it out by name at the moment. So, because
Okay,
it's
sounds
a
good.
Twilight Zone. People pop in like a year later and listen. So by that time, you'd be like, why am I talking about so vaguely? Yeah. As for the ones I'm doing, as I said several times, I do too much podcasting. There's this It's Time Enough podcast on the socials. On Patreon, it's Podcastius, where we do a whole lot of ones. Podcast 1999 about that Space 1999 show. Films and Filth, where we look at the top 100 and bottom 100 films as rated by IMDb users. One week's a good one, next week's a bad one. Supposedly, we found that's not always the case.
Mhm.
And there's some video game stuff like Luke Loves Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report, and the Game Show, which I appeared on a few weeks ago. I'm not usually on that one, but it's gamer adjacent, where they ask questions that gamers just assume everyone knows, but maybe people don't know, which I didn't know
Okay.
all of them. There were definitely things I didn't know. I was worse at the music round, weirdly enough. It's like
Huh.
we hear video game music, that sounds familiar. I can't quite place it.
Interesting.
Okay, well, after a long season 3 of the Twilight Zone, I guess we're gonna change up the guards a bit here and finally get into season 4. So for the listener, there probably will be a 2 or 3 week hiatus, and then we will be back pretty shortly.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me again. I'm excited to be here.
Word, thanks. Let me hit the record.